From the city of palms, deep in the heart of South Texas, where Monday you're wearing shorts and Thursday it's snowing, you've tuned in to RTD Radio.
Good for you.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. It actually did snow.
Yeah, for those of you that didn't get my little joke there, here in South Texas, literally on Monday we were all wearing shorts because it was 80 degrees.
Yeah.
And by Thursday night, Friday morning, it was below freezing and caused it to snow.
Yeah, it literally snowed.
Yep.
For like 2 hours?
Like 2-3 hours. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. You know, it's a strange event when people go outside and start taking selfies of the snow.
Yep.
So it's a very rare event. Hadn't snowed in years around here.
Yeah, I think like 14 years.
Or so I've been told. Yes. Well, welcome to rtdradio.com, YouTube channel RTD Radio, Camino a Damasco Radio.com for our Spanish-speaking audience. And that's it for the moment. We're not doing any social media. More than that.
Yeah, at the moment, no. Honestly, we just don't have the time for that, just because we're still trying to grow the radio show. But also in our personal lives, we got much stuff going on.
Yeah, I'd like to say that for sure. So today is going to be a continuation on our End Times
series
saga.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, there you go. And we're just going to briefly get into one of the subjects that we said we were going to touch. Namely being...
the two witnesses.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
What are they?
What, who, and... yeah, exactly. What are they? Who are they? What do they do?
Yeah.
Why are they important? Why should I care? Things like that. No, but straight out, to be honest with you, a lot of this stuff is you don't hear in church. For whatever reason, the book of Revelation is kind of...
taboo.
Not touched. Not even taboo. I think it's more because it's so... controversial that a lot of pastors kind of avoid it unknowingly or knowingly. Yeah. And within the book of Revelation, of course, is these two witnesses. Yeah. Specifically, we are talking about Revelation chapter 11.
1 through verses, 14.
Exactly, 1 through 14. It's not too long. Yeah. And they're briefly mentioned. I don't know if you want to... we can go ahead and read it real quick.
Why don't you... you want to read it?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
So Revelations 11, 1 through 14. This is, of course, the Apostle John talking right here.
What version are you going to read off of?
It is going to be the NIV.
NIV.
Yeah, I read the NIV.
Okay.
So it was given a reed like a measuring rod and was told, "Go and measure the temple of God and the altar with its worshippers, but exclude the outer court. Do not measure it, because it was given to the Gentiles. They will trample on the holy city for 42 months, and I will appoint my two witnesses, and they will prophesy for 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. They are the two olive trees and the two lampstands, and they stand before the Lord of the earth. If anyone tries to harm them, fire comes from their mouths and devours their enemies. This is how anyone who wants to harm them must die. They have power to shut up the heavens, so that it will not rain during the time they are prophesying, and they have the power to turn the waters into blood and to strike the earth with every kind of plague as often as they want. Now they have finished their testimony. The beast that comes up from the abyss will attack them and overpower and kill them. Their bodies will lie in the public square of the great city, which is figuratively called Sodom and Egypt, where also their Lord was crucified. For 3.5 days, some from every people, tribe, language, and nation will gaze on the bodies and refuse them burial. The inhabitants of the earth will gloat over them and will celebrate by sending each other gifts, because these two prophets had tormented those who live on the earth. But after the 3.5 days, the breath of life from God entered them, and they stood on their feet, and terror struck those who saw them. Then they heard a loud voice from heaven saying to them, "Come up here," and they went up to heaven in a cloud, while their enemies looked on. At that very hour there was a severe earthquake, and a tenth of the city collapsed. 7,000 people were killed in the earthquake, and the survivors were terrified and gave glory to the God of heaven. The second woe has passed. The third woe is coming soon. Ooh.
Wow, that's pretty...
And we end there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty deep.
Yeah, and just in these 14 verses, I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
that's a lot.
I can see why people have controversy.
Or different opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At this point, we're not really sure how metaphorically this scene is being portrayed. Whether the author is trying to be literal, or if we're to take this metaphorically.
Exactly.
And that's one of the biggest crossroads or divisions in the road of interpretation that we find on this subject. I don't know. There's a lot of people that want to identify the two witnesses, and I think it heavily depends on your posture on the tribulation. This is heavily dependent on that.
Yeah, it's going to depend on what you believe. Post-trib, pan-trib, new one I learned.
What is pan-trib?
And pre-trib.
Yeah.
I think we discussed, I think pan-trib means that the rapture will take place during the tribulation. Right?
Okay, yeah.
I think that's what that means. I heard it this past week, and it kind of caught me off guard.
I had heard pre-trib and post-trib.
But never pan-trib.
No, exactly.
Yeah. Just to avoid an argument, I don't think I'm gonna state my position, or I don't think you're gonna state yours. But honestly, I just wanted to kind of start off with literally the first 2 verses.
Okay.
Is the angel telling John to go measure the temple?
Yeah.
Where he literally divides it into 2 parts, where one being the part trampled by the Gentiles.
Yeah.
And the other part being the actual altar itself.
Yeah.
So that goes to show me that at this time in Jerusalem, I would assume it'd be Jerusalem because it says where Christ died.
Yeah.
Specifically, that in this place there has to be an altar. So that means the temple would have been rebuilt.
Yes.
At this time. A lot of stuff you can infer. I mean, if it tells you this, it tells you that.
Yeah.
In this case, if it says go measure the altar, that means there's what? There's an altar there.
Yeah.
So if physically at this moment in time right now, there's no altar, that means it has to be built.
Yes.
So
correct.
things like that we can infer.
Yeah.
And specifically saying that at least the outer court was given to the Gentiles.
Yeah.
So there had to have been some kind of agreement where the inner court is for the Jews and the outer court is for the Gentiles. And of course, it pretty much saying that the Gentiles trample it for 42 months.
Yeah.
So because of that, these 2 witnesses come out and start prophesying. Yeah. Now, that's where we go to the question: who are these 2 witnesses?
Yeah, and where did they come out of? How did they appear? There's a big debate there.
The only thing it alludes to is verse 4 when it says, "They are the 2 olive trees and the 2 lampstands, and they stand before the Lord of the earth."
Yeah.
So now, are we to take it literally as they are literally 2 lampstands and 2 olive trees? Or
I don't think so.
I don't think so, because an olive tree and a lampstand can't preach. They can't.
Or
they
prophesy.
Don't breathe. In this case, they breathe fire.
Yeah.
To anybody that tries to hurt them.
Which is one of the biggest things about this part of the book of Revelation, is that if you'll notice, like Armando was saying, it's literally describing an altar, and now we're getting into a metaphoric description of the prophets or the witnesses.
Yes.
So at what point do we take it literally, and at what point do we take it metaphorically? That's totally to be debated, right?
Yeah. Now, some of the explanations that I've come across or heard as to who or what are these 2 witnesses.
Yeah.
When I say who, obviously I'm literally describing a person.
Yes.
When I say what, it's something a little bit more metaphoric.
Yeah.
So on the metaphoric side, I've heard the 2 witnesses be described as, 1, the Jews, and the Gentiles. So rather than be an individual human being or persons, it would be actually these groups of people. So the Jews being one witness and the Gentiles being another witness.
Yeah.
Another one being the Old and the New Testament.
Could be.
Is another metaphoric explanation that I've heard. Another one that actually just kind of came out was the actual angels on the top of the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
Because of the fact that literally being the mercy seat, and those 2 angels literally stand before the Lord.
The Lord, yeah.
Which would coincide with the verse 4 I just read.
Yeah.
So those would be, I guess, the metaphoric explanations.
Sure.
Whereas the more literal would be, of course, your Enoch and Elijah, Moses and Elijah.
Yeah.
Or I've even heard it could honestly be any random person. It could
Yeah.
literally be me and you. I mean, I'm not to say that I'm honorable enough to be that, but it could literally be some two random guys.
Yeah.
Because I've heard the argument, well, God can do whatever He wants. He could take two random guys if He wanted to and make them the two witnesses.
He could.
Yeah, He could. But those are some of the explanations for who or what are the two witnesses that I've heard. I don't know if you heard anything different or.
I've heard people trying to identify which biblical characters would fit the different descriptions based on the word olive tree and lampstand being used in different passages
to describe a certain person,
to describe a certain individual. But again, we come to the situation where we're not sure if this that's happening is a metaphoric interpretation as a whole, or if literally something is happening, like there's a war going on, there's disturbances going on, the Gentiles are physically trampling, as in there's some kind of conflict, and out of this conflict come forth these two physical beings that are gonna, prophesy.
Yeah.
Or it just really depends on how you're interpreting the book of Revelation as a whole.
Yeah.
Because at this point, you're knee deep in Revelation.
Yeah, we're already on chapter, 11?
Yeah.
So.
At this point, the scroll has already been identified. The 7 seals have already been identified.
Things like that, yeah.
Things like of that nature have already been identified. So at this point, you've had to have already made up your mind on how you're going to deal with these seemingly metaphoric descriptions.
Yeah.
And again, like Armando said, to not get into an argument and define our own posture.
At least not on this show. Next show, yes.
Yeah, we might. I mean, I could. I don't have an issue, but it might get a little long-winded, and it might deviate from the purpose of just summarizing what the two witnesses are and what we've heard are people's definitions of them.
Well, yeah, of course, like you said, during this time, I would say that there would be some kind of disturbance. Obviously, just them existing is getting certain people angry to the point where they have enemies, and also to the point where they actually have to defend themselves. Yeah. So, because it says if anyone tries to harm them, so obviously there's people out there that want to do them harm, so they have to defend themselves. In this case, by breathing. I don't want to say breathing, but fire comes out of their mouth. Now, is it literally fire coming out of their mouth, or are they actually that's the preaching or something? Obviously, to be honest with you, given that some of the supernatural stuff we've talked about already, I actually would not doubt if they could breathe. I mean,
I see what you mean.
I actually don't doubt that at all.
That's where we get into some of the people trying to identify these two witnesses as probably
Moses or Elijah.
Moses or Elijah, or Enoch and Elijah. And I've heard somebody say, I don't remember exactly who, but trying to relate these two witnesses to whomever the two angels that destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah were. Because those were two. They presented themselves with Jesus to Abraham, and then after their sit down, and I guess they had a meal, then they go to Lot.
Did their thing.
Yeah, they go to Lot, and they try to warn him, based on Abraham pleading with them and actually arguing with them. And these two angels had that ability. They actually blinded the people that came to Lot's door, and they gave Lot and his family time to run, basically. And as they were running, fire and brimstone rained down from the heavens. Now, it doesn't specify whether these angels were there or whether they were the ones that were physically
throwing down the brimstone. Causing the fires,
I could see how some people want to say, okay, in Revelation, we're talking about two angels that when someone's trying to harm them, they literally breathe fire upon people.
Yeah, I could
and
see
trying
that
to
happen.
tie them into these two other angels that destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. It also says that they will be defeated.
Yeah, eventually they're gonna get beat.
Eventually, but it doesn't specify a time frame.
Actually, I think it does. That they're gonna be prophesying for 1,260 days.
Yeah.
So it's actually
Okay.
I don't know how that's breakdown in months or whatever.
Yeah.
At this moment, but I know it's was it 3.5 years? I'll be honest with you, if I'm not mistaken, that's literally the half point of the quote unquote 7-year tribulation.
Yeah.
But yes, so actually so they die at that middle point.
Yeah.
Also I know you were breaking down the Moses and Elijah or whatnot, and also another evidence or something to support that would be verse 6. They have the power to shut up the heavens so that it will not rain. Well, who did that in the Bible? Elijah, yeah. And then the second part
about turning water into blood.
We're turning water into blood and strike the earth with every kind of plague. So who did that? Moses.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why some people will attribute that to Moses and Elijah.
Yeah.
And just like you said, they're gonna get beat specifically by the beast that comes up from the abyss will attack them. Now I want to make it something point out: the creature or the beast from the abyss is not the Antichrist.
This is true.
They are two separate, completely separate individuals or entities. So by this time, the Antichrist is doing his thing.
Revealed.
Yeah, he's been revealed. He's doing his thing. Now, the beast that comes up from the abyss. So by this time, if you want to reference another chapter in Revelation, where the opening of the abyss,
the key.
This would have been at that time.
Yeah.
So he's going to overpower and kill them, pretty much leaving their bodies there in the open where people can just spit on it, defile it, do whatever they're going to do to the bodies and actually celebrate their deaths. Mm-hmm. But of course, God being as awesome as he is, breathes life back into them.
Yeah.
After coincidentally 3.5 days.
Yeah, that's
and they come back up and they come back to life, and God literally says, "Come up here." I think that's funny. Literally, just a voice from heaven saying to them, "Come up here," and they went up to heaven in a cloud while their enemies looked on. Now, another thing that also caught me was in a cloud. That's literally exactly how Jesus ascended back up to heaven in the book of Acts. And also when the transfiguration happened, what was surrounding Jesus? A cloud. And that's when you appeared Moses and Elijah. So there's a lot of evidence pointing towards them. I'm not saying that's how I agree, but there's a lot of evidence pointing towards it being Moses and Elijah. For me, why wouldn't it just say Moses and Elijah? But going back to it, I'm not the interpreter.
Yes, I think that because of these facts, of these descriptions, is why people want to ascribe these personalities to them. And I wouldn't doubt that if we're knee deep in the end times, God's going to bring back some of the big players to oversee the final happenings leading to the return of Christ in physical form. Mm-hmm. So I guess at this point, the people that want to interpret this that way are pretty much getting ready for the metaphysical to be physical and less meta. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Which it quite possibly it could be that way. Now the other way of interpreting the whole of Revelation is not that literally, and taking the metaphoric parts as descriptions or as puzzles to be revealed by thought or by comparing to other verses in the Bible. There's also the other interpretation that I had offered about the mark of the beast, etc., not being physical events that happen in a chronological order, but more or less being an experience in your own life. So there's also that possibility, and under that specific interpretation, the two witnesses could quite literally be anybody in your life whom fits the bill. right? So maybe it's a mentor who, or two mentors, or people that are close to you that are defeated by the beast, who in this case would interpret anything that's trying to deviate you from your walk with God, and whom are defeated and trampled upon on the streets, again signifying just the people that are around you and the type of life that you live, and they are raised again. And again, this is from this like personal interpretation point of view that could also fit the bill, and only the person going through this quote unquote time of tribulation in their own personal life would be able to identify who these two witnesses are. So I'm only throwing that out there just to support the idea that there are multiple interpretations available, and any of them could be correct. For all we know, the prophet John is literally trying to prophesy about your own self to the reader of the Bible. At this point in your walk with Christ, if you reach the book of Revelation, you should be pretty knee deep in the Bible, or knee deep enough to understand some of the passages that the author is borrowing from when he's explaining the book of Revelation. For example, the lampstand and the olive tree, all those are found in the book of Zechariah. They're found in the book of Daniel. They're found in different places. So if you've reached this point in your walk and in your study of the Bible, it's quite possible that at this point, God is trying to give you, the reader, a personal message. And you, the reader, are the one who's in charge of trying to ascribe the personalities that fit all of these seemingly metaphoric descriptions, and how Christ is going to come back into your life, and how you are going to defeat the enemy by being fervent with your faith, by being by going through your tribulation and allowing Christ to come back into your life and heart.
Mm-hmm.
Quite possibly could be. I know that sounds more far-fetched
A little bit.
than trying to. No, I understand.
It is an interpretation, and it's valid. I'm not gonna say it's not. It's not valid. Yeah.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, nobody really knows.
No.
But I think that not that we're all super know every single verse and reference, but at this point, I think both of us should be able to weed out certain interpretation. Like if somebody were to tell me, no, it's Joe the plumber and something like that. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should be able to weed out some of them. And I'm not gonna say this. I'm not gonna sit here and say that those guys are wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna say, you know what? Like, I don't personally think it's the Old and New Testament.
Okay. Yeah.
That's just things like that, because how can you kill a book, for example, and have it bleed and have its body there for 3 days, things like that. Now, if you want to take it literally, now I'm gonna take that literally, that they are two human beings. I'm gonna take it to that point.
Yeah.
I know we might have difference in opinions.
Yeah.
But that's where I kind of lead towards. But
well, that's why I said at this point in reading the book of Revelation, you should have already made up your mind how you're going to
approach
this. Yeah. And that's kind of what we're trying to say in this episode.
Yeah, definitely.
Like we're talking about this very specific event.
Mm-hmm. And it's an important event. I would say so, because like I said, for those of you that even believe in a tribulation, this would literally be the halfway point, causing or marking the last 3.5 years where literally all hell breaks loose and it just kind of goes downhill from there. Now, and you can allude to that in verse 13 where it says, as soon as they were taken up, there was an earthquake and a tenth of the city collapsed. 7,000 people were killed, and the survivors were terrified and gave glory to God.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you got that verse 14 that's real ominous. The second woe has passed. The third woe is coming.
Yeah.
So it's kind of foreshadowing that if you think this was bad,
Yeah.
something else is coming that's worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is an important event. I don't think that at this point we need to know who witness 1 is and who witness 2 is.
Yeah.
More as I'm more interested in the event itself.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. Here you got to keep in mind that you're talking about the wrath of both the wrath of God and the wrath of the devil.
Mm-hmm.
So, because the book of Revelation is combining the description of both.
Yeah, and there is a difference.
Yeah,
there's a huge difference. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So when you're talking about these woes, etc., we're
Who's
literally
causing the woe?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
At this point, the trumpets have started to be sounded, but they're not complete yet.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So there's a lot of jumping back and forth, and it seems like all of these descriptions that John is giving, it seems almost like he's or going over this whole end times situation several times. Like I had mentioned in another show, just by reading it and just by seeing the style of literature, it almost seems like, okay, I'm going to explain it one way. Now I'm going to explain it another way. And now I'm going to explain it yet a third way. And that's at least where I get this idea of this quite possibly might lead to a path of interpretation that's totally out in the boondocks, if you will. Yeah. And I see how theologically it would seem like the book of Revelation has to theologically tie together. And this is where a lot of people want to just go hardcore on the little nuances and say, well, because he can turn water into blood, then the only other person who's done that is Moses. So it has to be. But then again, you get into another phrase where it's describing them in a totally different way. And in that case, then you would totally take out of context trying to ascribe a personality to these people.
Yeah. I don't think that we can be so sticky to the subtle nuances or little things. Because like for those of you be like, oh no, it has to be Moses because Moses is the one that turned water into blood. But if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, Moses wasn't allowed to enter the promised land. Yeah. So if he wasn't allowed, he really shouldn't even be in Jerusalem in the first place. Yeah. So if you want to be that stickler to detail, there's things like that could. Yeah. And I said, and we're not here to tear down arguments. We're really not. But
if you want to be legalistic about things, which is what I was saying, if you're going to be legalistic, you got to keep things in the context the whole time.
Yes, you can't be legalistic one part and
and then not. Yeah, because if you're gonna give that interpretation and you want to be legalistic, the reality is that Moses didn't do anything.
Exactly.
God was the one doing things. Moses was just a messenger who got sent and told Pharaoh, tell Pharaoh to back off because this is gonna happen. Matter of fact, Moses didn't even believe he was going to be able to do these things as he was doing them.
He said no like 3 times. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and even he was surprised by some of these quote unquote miracles that he was performing. So, and that's where I go back to the idea of, to me, it just seems real strange how the author is asking you to take this part literal, take this part metaphoric. And then when you start doing that, you kind of start tripping over, okay, which parts am I going to take metaphoric?
Which one do I need to do? Yeah.
So is fire literally coming out of his mouth, or is that metaphoric fire? But at the same time, It's a metaphoric lampstand, which was, because it's a real person, like a real lampstand can't talk. So then that must be a metaphoric lampstand. So you see this this going back and forth. I honestly think that's why the book of Revelation was written that way. I don't think we're supposed to know. Not in total black and white detail.
Yeah. I think we're given more of like you said, a measuring rod, just so we can kind of gauge, like signs of
the signs of the time.
Signs of the times, not specific. Look for Witness One on Facebook and kind of stuff like that. No, I don't think it's too exact, and I think like you said, it was meant to be that way, purposefully vague enough so that you don't know the specificity of it, but enough to where you can see the signs coming. Like I just pointed out. At this point, there's obviously going to be some kind of tension against these two witnesses to the point where they have to defend themselves, and also we know literally where they're going to be at. They're going to be in the great city where Jesus was crucified. So that's going to be Jerusalem. But on the metaphoric level, it says Jerusalem is called also figuratively Sodom and Egypt. So how can that, you know what I'm saying? Like, how can that be if Egypt is somewhere else? Now, if you want to get all into it, I can see where in the future some treaty is made where to stop the Palestinians and Israelis from fighting over Jerusalem, it's under the custodianship of, let's say, Egypt, for example, because Egypt is, from my understanding, friendly to both parties. So then, yes, that would fulfill it. But not to go so far off track. I mean, it's really important to know the signs of the time. So at this point, there's obviously going to be some kind of tension towards anybody that kind of prophesies or witnesses to God. To the point where they want to kill you.
This is true.
And it literally says that people from literally for 3.5 days, some from every people, tribe, language, and nation will celebrate their deaths. So it's going to be something that literally everybody knows about. It's not going to be something regional. It's going to be something to the point where, like I said, everybody's going to know about it, celebrating or mourning their deaths.
I don't know, man. I'm still stuck in trying to figure out what way. I haven't made up my mind on how I'm going to read the whole of Revelation, and I've tried to go through it different ways. To me, there's no supporting facts, no like smoking guns, if you can even express it that way. But I don't think it's supposed to be that way.
Neither do I. I don't.
This is one of those things that is meant to be enthusiastic for those of us who are excited about Jesus coming back. To me, that at the end of the day, this is like it's literally titled "The Revelation of the Coming of Christ," and that's the I guess the full title, if you will, and that should be the main focus. These things are going to happen leading up to the coming of Christ. So getting into huge debates about who they are. I mean, it's neither here nor there. And to be honest, it also depends on who you ask at what moment in time you ask. Because if you ask, for example, my father, or let me go to a more practical example, to the pastor at the church that I go to, when credit cards came out, everybody was like, that's the mark of the beast right there. And at that moment, there was conflict in Israel, et cetera, and the politicians of the time were being ascribed these roles. I don't remember exactly who was trying to make peace over there in Israel.
A lot of people.
But there was a very prominent politician, and his name is escaping me. When I talked to the pastor, he was telling me, well, when I first heard about the mark of the beast, it was because credit cards were something totally new. And there was a conflict with, and I don't remember what politician he mentioned, who had gone in there and they actually like attacked his vehicle that he was in, and they tried to kill him, et cetera, et cetera. So people are saying, there's your witness. But then again, Damascus hadn't been flattened yet. Like it's described
there's a
somewhere
lot of
else.
things. Yeah.
So I don't think we're meant to know. I think it's gonna be one of those things that if you make it to the throne room, you can look back on and go, oh,
Oh, that's cool. I heard about that.
yeah, like
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So to me, that's the main
Now,
focus of
yeah,
this.
definitely. And if you're a pre-tribber, then you don't have to worry about it because you'll be good. No, we're
Oh,
not.
that was
No,
low,
no.
dude.
Well,
That
no,
was
that's
low.
what they believe, and
Yeah,
that's not
no,
to, and that's not to
that's
make
true.
fun of anybody.
That's
Because if you're a
true.
post-trib, well, then tough because you're gonna have to be dealing with all this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that
And that's why you want to identify who they are, so
yeah,
that as soon as you
so
see them,
exactly. You're like, oh, thank God, he's finally
yeah,
coming.
he's finally here.
Yeah, things like that. But
So I'm interested in hearing and listening to some comments.
yeah, and definitely given that we are in the end time saga, the main reason we're talking about these two witnesses are because they are signs
Yeah.
of the end times.
Yes.
These two, the arrival, I guess, ministry and death and resurrection of these two witnesses are literally markers of the end times. They're marking a point where it's all going to come to an end.
Yeah.
Things like that. So yeah, so that's really why I wanted to kind of touch on it. I think on the next episode, I think we should kind of go into who or what we believe they are. Maybe just briefly. I'm kind of leaning towards one way.
Okay.
But we'll go into more detail the next
Yeah,
time.
that's a dangerous thing because if you remember our past show, we are supposed to not be here
Oh,
because
that's
of the
right.
astral alignments of the Virgin clothed in the sun with the moon at her feet.
September 23rd.
Remember that?
Yeah, the Shemitah.
So I'm only bringing that up to reinforce this idea of you gotta make a decision for yourself, stick to it, and then if you're wrong, you're wrong.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna be so hardliner where it has to be this. If it's not, then no God or something like that. There's people like that.
Because there were some people that were
straight out.
They were waiting for the rapture in September
23rd. Yeah,
and I think that's a mistake. Because if you're waiting for God to show you a tangible sign in order for you to believe, then
you have more faith in the sign than God.
Yeah. And you're risking being one of those workers of iniquity that Jesus Christ is going to say, "Depart from me, for I knew you not." So I think that's why it's called faith.
Yeah.
It'd be called something else if you could, if there was a clause in there, that says after this certain level of proof, it doesn't work that way, yo.
Yeah, but it's interesting because I know even like in pop culture, there are certain like depictions of these two witnesses. Like I know in the what movie was it?
Oh, there's a few.
Like the Omega Code, things like that. Some of these Christian movies,
well,
or the Left Behind franchise. Yeah, there's like
some of these.
There's like these depictions of who they would be and how they die, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool. I mean.
And then you got the funny versions. You remember Dogma?
In Dogma, yeah, like the movie Dogma with like Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. Yeah, that's a funny movie.
Hayek.
Those would be an example of the two witnesses being literally two random guys. Yeah,
and one of them ran his mouth
quite
profusely.
profane. Yeah,
yeah.
But who's to say? Yeah, honestly, who's to say it couldn't be?
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that was a little blasphemous, but I only brought it up to exemplify this.
Yeah.
This idea of it being a staple in pop culture, in our conscious mind, which is where I think it should be. The path to wisdom begins with the fear of God. And if something like the book of Revelation doesn't put the fear of God in you, then Elvis has left the building.
Yeah. But yeah, continue to study the book of Revelation and the two witnesses. Actually, I'm interested to hear what you guys' opinions are. Who do you think they are? And like I said, I'm not here to say you're wrong, you're right, or no. It's just, you know what? It's interesting because I mean, you might actually tell me something I don't even know, and that'd be awesome. That'd be. I want to get my mind blown. Yeah, and that'd be pretty cool.
And just to comment on that, if for some reason your comment got deleted and you feel that it shouldn't have, make the comment again and we'll consider including it the problem was that, as you all know, on YouTube there are some bots rolling around, and I actually deleted some comments based on me deducing that these were actually not humans.
Yeah, it's a robot.
And it's just, yeah, there's some bots out there. And y'all know what I'm talking about. There's some troll bots out there.
It's Russia, man.
Yeah.
You gotta blame Russia for everything.
You can tell because they kind of lose the context of what you're talking about. And it almost seems like there's like some kind of voice recognition, keyword cross-referencing thing going on. So if your comment got deleted, one, it was either extremely offensive, which we will not tolerate on our comment thread.
We will be equally as offensive. No, I'm just kidding.
Or two, we probably thought you were kind of like a troll bot. So if you're passionate about having your opinion stay on our comment feed, just make it again. All right. So I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good for right now, and we'll see what we come up with on the next episode. We're still going to continue our End Times series saga. There's a lot to go over, but I think we're going to try to go over some of the main points, some of the more popular questions y'all would have, things like that. But it is interesting, and I would definitely recommend you guys to, at a minimum, at least try to recognize the signs.
Yeah.
Try to get yourself ready. At the end of the day, it's not who the witnesses are, but actually you should be a witness.
Yeah.
So.
And if you're waiting for some of these signs to get your act together,
no, bro, sorry, it's gonna be too late.
Then
unless you're a pre-trip, no, I'm just playing.
There you go again.
But you know what I mean. Yeah, don't wait till the last minute. Of course.
No.
Get your act together now. Yeah, we're not guaranteed tomorrow, so do it now.
Yeah, do it now.
So I'm good for this episode. I'm glad that we're back. It's been a little bit.
It was a little while.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the views right now on YouTube, and little by little, we're getting more and more views, and I'm hoping to be more and more popular. I know it's not going to be an overnight success, but
I just want to interact with people.
Definitely, yeah. I would welcome your comments. Actually, now that I think about it, we do have a mega fan out there. I'm not going to say his name, but we do plan on doing an interview with him because he has actually a few interesting stories about when he was in the military and some of the things he experienced. So we might actually deviate from the End Time saga for just one episode, just to kind of get his story out there while it's still fresh in his mind about some of the experiences. So just something to look forward to.
Look forward to that.
And you know you know who you are.
Yeah. So
yeah.
All right, y'all. Well, thank you for tuning in.
Mm-hmm.
God bless every single one of you.
Yep. God bless, and we'll see you all next time.